So the big news in Canada lately has been the so-called resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the prorogation of Parliament. So I thought today on Don't Talk TV, I'd talk a little bit about the law behind prorogation. What is it? How is it? What does it mean? And how is it going to apply in practice in today's situation? Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So on Monday, January the 6th, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he will be resigning. He hasn't resigned yet, which I think is important. He'll be Prime Minister until they find a new leader for the Liberal Party of Canada. And as part of that, he prorogued Parliament. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what is that, what's the law behind it, how is it implemented, and what does that mean in today's circumstances? So firstly, what is prorogation? Well, it's basically a suspension of the Parliament. The Parliament isn't dissolved, so there's no election, but the session of the Parliament is ended. So there's actually nothing explicitly in the Charter or the Constitution Act or in any federal laws lay out where this procedure and power comes from. If we take a look at the Constitution here, I think it's implicitly in Section 38 of the Constitution Act, where it says the Governor General shall, from time to time, in the Queen's name, by instrument under the Great Seal of Canada, summon and call together the House of Commons. So I think implicit in that is the ability to suspend the House of Commons or call it at different times. And of course, earlier in the Constitution Act, it's confirmed that the monarch, that King Charles in our case, retains the position of the executive of our government in law. In practice, as we know, the Prime Minister is essentially both the head of state and the head of government, which I think is a bit of a problem. I think it's better if you have two separate people, so there actually is some sort of check and balance. But for reasons of historic reasons and our infatuation with democracy as if it's the best thing ever, I think it's been fairly referred to as the God that failed. That's why they don't have any power. And it actually ends up being a worse and less democratic situation than if the unelected Governor General actually acted independently and with some power on behalf of the monarch. Now, what are the implications of this? As I said, there won't be an election. It does bring an end the current session of Parliament, though, so that's important when we consider that an ending of session means that any bills that haven't reached royal assent, they cease to exist. They die on the order paper. So I think that's very important. We take a look here at some of the bills. These are the government bills that are still ongoing that won't exist after this prorogation. A number of these are just at first reading, but I think some that are of note here is C-26, the Act respecting cybersecurity, amending Telecommunications Act and making consequential amendments to other acts. This has made it all the way to third reading in the Senate, but not to royal assent, so it won't exist anymore after this. Likewise, one that everyone's been talking about a lot, Bill C-63, it's still in the House of Commons at second reading. That will cease to exist as a result of this. But most importantly, the Prime Minister and all the cabinet ministers retain their positions, retain all their rights, privileges, and powers, so they can still govern by order in council, which brings us to the implications. A lot of people are celebrating because they really don't like Mr. Trudeau, so they're very happy to see him gone. In my view, celebration is a bit premature. He isn't gone. He won't be gone for some time yet, and he still has full power, and he'll be able to govern in a almost dictatorial fashion without oversight, without public debate, without voting in the House of Commons, and without any oversight or accountability. So, because as I said, they can still issue orders in council, so they can ban more firearms if they want. They could change timelines on amnesty or certain things to do with firearms. We've seen them do lots of things. I mean, they could even invoke the Emergencies Act if they had some reason to. So they do retain a lot of power, and there is still a lot that could be done between now and whenever there's an election, which brings me to the next implication. It prevents there being an election sooner rather than later. Every indication was that, I mean, of course, talk is cheap. We'd have to see what the actions might have actually been, which we won't know. But Mr. Singh said he was going to finally stop supporting the Liberal government when Parliament resumed and there was a no confidence vote on January the 7th. So this prevented that no confidence vote from happening. If the prorogation hadn't happened, potentially the Parliament could have ended, they could have been voted down, no confidence, on Tuesday, and we'd be gearing up for an election in about 60 days. This way, the election will probably be in the summer. I'm suspecting that a new leader isn't going to change things sufficiently for these opposition parties to start supporting the Liberal Party again. So they'll probably do the vote of no confidence sometime after March the 24th when Parliament reconvenes, and then we might be looking at a summer election. But as of right now, this is actually quite a crafty maneuver that's been done by the Prime Minister, allowing him to stay in power and keep his party in power. And, you know, at a time where the United States has a new government, so that may make it very difficult for Canada to negotiate anything, because there's no, although Justin Trudeau on paper still has a lot of power, on the other hand, he's said he's resigning, so he's a bit of a lame duck. So overall, I actually think this is more something to be cautious about, not necessarily bad news, not necessarily good news. There are bad aspects. I suppose there are good aspects for those who don't want to see Mr. Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada anymore. But I thought it was important to point out some of these legal aspects and what it all means and how it will affect the functioning of the Canadian government. This video, of course, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, contact a lawyer. You can call me. And we're always interested in show recommendations. We've had a number of those. I'm trying to get to some of the requests about some more educational things, but I just thought that viewers would want to hear about this today. We'll start getting into some more educational things a bit next week. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on social media.